Before we start, we acknowledge that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated in the traditional territories of diverse indigenous groups, and we acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province. Today, we are very fortunate to have Niamh O'Sullivan, Manager of Social Enterprise and Networks from BiSocial Canada, to talk a little bit about social enterprise certifications and how the process is going to look like. I always learn something new in conversation with Niamh, and I'm so glad to have her today for our sessions. Niamh, I will pass the time to you, um, and you can kick us off.
Thank you so much. Let me hijack the screen here. Um, there we go. I think I've taken over now. Do you see my full screen?
Yep.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Lovely to meet you. My name is Niamh O'Sullivan. It's an Irish name, so you have to completely ignore the spelling. I like to say it's Niamh, like Steve. Um, I'm calling today from the unceded and traditional territories of the Squamish and Lillooet Nation. So I'm in BC. I'm 4.5 hours behind you. I live in Whistler, and it's a beautiful sunny day. Last week we were full of smoky skies and it was 34 degrees. So I'm so happy that September is here and it's cooling off. Um, but today I'm going to talk to you about BiSocial Canada and specifically social enterprise certification and what that means. So I'm probably going to throw a variety of language and topics at you today that you might be familiar with and you might be unfamiliar with, but I'm going to take us back in time. So BiSocial Canada is a social enterprise. We're a national organization, so we work all across the country. We're a small remote team, mostly based in BC. Our founder started BiSocial Canada 11 years ago, but before that, he was working with enterprising nonprofits from all across the country, helping businesses and nonprofits to start social enterprises. He did this for many, many years, and he realized that the issue is not that social enterprises do not exist. The issue is that not enough people were buying from them. And if more people were able to buy from social enterprises, then they could create more impact and contribute more positively to their own communities. So he said there's a issue and we need to create demand for social enterprises. How do we do this? How can we force people to buy from social enterprise? Not force, but encourage, strongly encourage people to buy from social enterprise. So he decided to focus on social procurement, and that's when he started BiSocial Canada. So, what exactly is social procurement? I'm going to get into that in a second, but a big part of why Social Canada exists is to create a social value marketplace. And we like to consider it like a three-legged stool. So there's social enterprise, social procurement, and social value finance. And without these three components, they can't really exist together. They're all crucial and lean on each other in order to be a successful stool. So procurement is what lots of large organizations use to buy goods and services. So we work with huge purchasers like the government of Nova Scotia, City of Toronto, City of Winnipeg, um, large construction companies like PCL, Graham Construction, Shandos, huge tech companies, private sector, universities, anchor institutions, hospitals, hydro companies, transit companies, any organization that spends tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars has lots of rules about how they have to buy goods and services. There's international trade agreements, there's direct purchasing, there's low value threshold spends. And we come in and provide social procurement consulting services to help them develop policies and frameworks to spend their money in a more socially beneficial way. Historically, they usually go for quality and lowest price, and that's what creates economic value. But we think that if you add a social component, so this year, what's really popular, obviously, is buying Canadian. If you buy locally, we all know that it contributes positively on the local economy. But why not go one step further? Why not add in a green or a sustainable or environmental component? Protect our climate resiliency. What other elements can be added into so it's not just lowest price and quality? Is there a social value creation that could lead to community value creation? So local procurement is included in this, buying Canadian, buying something with a green element, environmental element. Why not buy from an Indigenous owned business, a Black owned business, a women owned business? But we think the best value for dollar spent is with social enterprise because social enterprises reinvest the majority of their profits back into their purpose. And if we're truly trying to change the economy, I mean, capitalism's not going anywhere, but if we do business differently and follow the money, and if money goes back into community and creating impact, that is a mechanism for achieving the social value marketplace. So that's very high level of what a social procurement could look like. But I'm here today to talk about social enterprise certification. So as I mentioned, we provide social procurement consulting as well as education and advocacy for very large purchasers from all across the country. We help them to build demand for social procurement. So they get it. They're looking now and they're like, okay, we know what a social enterprise is. Like, where do we find them? What are these elusive chameleon phoenixes, unicorns, whatever you call them, that exist all across the country? So we started by social enterprise certification as a way to identify social enterprises all across the country. And we've helped these large purchasers build demand for social enterprises. And so we work on the demand side, but we also help support the supply side. How can we support social enterprises to build their capacity so that they can gain contracts with these large purchasers and create more impact? So that's kind of where our social enterprise certification comes in. What exactly is a social enterprise, and are you one? In Canada, there's probably about 40,000 social enterprises that exist currently, and many of them don't know that they're a social enterprise. A social enterprise is a business that generates the majority of its revenue through the sale of goods and services. They have a defined social, cultural, or environmental purpose embedded in their business operations. And this is a crucial piece. They reinvest the majority of their profits, so at least 51% or more of their profits go back into their social, cultural, or environmental purpose. So there's limited, if not any, distribution to private owners or shareholders. We didn't invent this definition, it's used internationally. Um, in Canada, it's used by the Social Enterprise Council of Canada. If you go onto the Government of Canada's, the federal government's website, you can see the definition. It's also aligned with the Social Enterprise World Forum, which is a global organization. And then it's also used by Social Enterprise UK, by Social Scotland, by Social USA, the government of South Korea, social traders in Australia, Social Enterprise Ghana, Social Enterprise Ethiopia, and by Social Ireland. So we didn't invent this, it's international and it's aligned with global practices. So social enterprises can sell anything. It could be any type of business. If you're selling goods and services, you're manufacturing goods and services, you can be a social enterprise, whether it's construction services, donuts, healthcare, maybe you're making candles, providing landscaping services, maybe you're a bike shop. The list goes on. Just like any traditional business, there's no limit to what a social enterprise can manufacture, produce, provide services for, and sell. What's unique about Canada is that there's no legislation stating that there's one type of incorporation model for a social enterprise. This is a business model continuum that kind of explains the spectrum of different types of businesses that exist. Social enterprises that could be a not-for-profit or a charity. I would say in our network anyway of certified social enterprises, about 90 to 95% of our certified social enterprises are nonprofits or charity. But more and more, we're starting to see these hybrid social enterprises. So this could be a cooperative without share capital. It could be a community contribution company, which is a type of incorporation model in BC. In Nova Scotia, they call it the community interest company. It could be a for-profit that's owned by a charity. It could be a for-profit that amended their articles of incorporation to clearly state that they reinvest majority of their profits back into their purpose. So there's no one way to incorporate, and there's lots of different reasons why an organization may choose a different type of incorporation model. So maybe with a charity, they can accept donations and issue tax receipts. With not-for-profits, they can apply for grants. Whereas for-profits, they can't get grants normally, but they can get a loan from the bank, or they could sell equity in their business and seek investment. So there's lots to consider when you're assessing what type of incorporation model you want to choose for your own social enterprise. Then you see here also social purpose business and for-profit companies. For-profit companies are traditional businesses that exist purely to generate profit. They don't care really about protecting people or planet or giving back to community. A social purpose business, this could be a B Corp, this could be a business that does really great things, but if you follow the money, they don't necessarily reinvest all of their profits back into their purpose. So that's the separation between the two. Social enterprises change capitalism, they change the economy because it goes back into community. When we talk about the social, cultural, or environmental purpose that a social enterprise is, usually is the reason why they were created in the first place. There's no limit. We have many certified social enterprises that address a variety of social issues. It might not be one, it could be 15. And the issues, to be honest, I couldn't fit them all on this page. It could be anything like supporting and protecting Indigenous culture, supporting poverty and homelessness, perhaps addiction and mental health issues. Maybe it's about supporting the elderly or people with physical health and well-being. More and more, we're starting to see more organizations focus on food security. This is a crisis that exists all across the country, especially with the rising cost of living. So, as you can see, there's no one type of social cause that an organization might have been created to address. There's many. And every community is different. You know, the needs of what's going on in St. John's would be very different to what's happening in Winnipeg or in rural British Columbia. And that's what's really beautiful about social enterprises, because they're so focused on their own community for the most part. They can really hone in on what their needs are and what their mission um, supports. So last year we created the Guide to Social Enterprise. This is a free resource you can access on our website. I'll post it in the chat afterwards. It explains the why, what, and how of social enterprise in Canada and a history. The last time the guide was released was about 10 years ago, and it was focused on how do you start a non-profit social enterprise. And as I mentioned, we're so far beyond that now. There's you don't just have to be a nonprofit to be a social enterprise. There's so many other ways of doing it. And also beyond launching a social enterprise, how do you sustain a social enterprise? You know, maybe you're 3 to 5 years in, you've gone through your initial startup grant. How do you sustain your business? Or perhaps you want to grow. Maybe you want to scale, enter into a new city. Maybe you want to do a social acquisition and buy a new business and start providing a new service. There's great business planning tools in this guide that one should consider when kind of navigating social enterprise ecosystem in Canada. So I'll put, where is it? Let me place in the chat here. I've got so many screens going right now with the Zoom. Uh, okay, I'll put it in the chat afterwards because there's too many things popping up right now. Um, so social enterprise certification, why should you become certified? We have four key driving forces for why we think certification is valuable. The first one is obviously unlocking new sales and partnership opportunities. As I mentioned, we work with all of these large purchasers from all across the country that are actively looking to diversify their supply chains and include social enterprises within their own purchasing practices. We have a directory on our website. I'll show you that in a second where you can find them. Social enterprises. Another great addition to becoming certified is having access to our expert support to grow and thrive. Our guide to social enterprise that I just mentioned is an example of this, but we also host lots of events throughout the year to support social enterprise. A big part of our being part of our network is growing the social enterprise movement. As I mentioned, there's maybe 40,000 social enterprises across the country. Loads of them don't even know they're social enterprise. It could be a tennis club, a golf club. They probably identify as just a sports organization or a nonprofit, but they're likely selling services and goods. They're a social enterprise too. So we want to be able to grow the social enterprise movement. And we go to the federal government, ESDC, ISED, and PSPC, and we advocate on behalf of the sector. We also research and gather information on the sector. How many organizations are there? How many employees are there? How much wraparound supports are these social enterprises providing to their employees? Um, how many dollars are they saving the government by existing? And what are they contributing positively to their communities? And lastly, the is to verify your impact. So being having the stamp of approval, being a certified social enterprise is a great way to raise your profile and also differentiate your organization and make it stand out from others. So, as I mentioned, a big part of what we do is about raising the business profile of social enterprises and increasing your visibility for potential purchasers. On our website, we have our online social enterprise directory that anyone can access for free. You don't have to pay for this information. We don't want to hide it behind a paywall. And you can filter our directory based on location, so province, but also city. You can also filter it on type of goods and services sold, as well as social value created. This is a great example of a story. So AGM is a really cool social enterprise just based outside the GTA in Ontario. There's an area outside of Toronto called the Golden Mile that's about to experience maybe 15 to 20 years of construction as they install a huge new infrastructure project. They're putting in a metro line. And the area that this construction's happening is a historically very poor neighborhood. So a group of nonprofits got together and said, what can we do to support our community so they can benefit from this inconvenient construction that's happening? And they said, you know what? We should start a construction company so that we can create entry-level jobs for our residents that are going to be impacted by this construction, and maybe it can be a way for them to enter into a new career and pull themselves and their families out of poverty. So they created AGM. What they did is they leveraged a relationship with Acon, which is a huge existing construction company, and they used the relationships from that to gain contracts. So they do hydrovac, fiber optic installation, traffic control for construction, and they've been working on this project. And one of the benefits of becoming a certified social enterprise is they were able to connect with our purchasing partners. So, as I mentioned, the large purchasers that we work with, there's one construction company called Shandos Construction who actively look to work with social enterprise. And they got a contract on one of their sites and they were able to create more employment opportunities as a result of this contract. So, that's a really great perk to becoming certified, raising your business profile and connecting with more purchasers, just like AGM did with Shandos Construction. We also provide consulting supports for our social enterprises. Each year, you have access to 2 hours of free coaching with us. This could be used for anything that we might have expertise in. So it could be maybe you want to find an RFX or you want to draft a proposal and would like us to review a proposal before you send it to a potential purchaser and hopefully gain a contract. Maybe you're interested in starting a new social enterprise, or we recently had an organization in Winnipeg that they were set up as a charity, but they wanted to separate their social enterprise out as a for-profit incorporation to remove liability and make sure that payroll was easier, and a few other administrative pieces. So we came in and did a session with them to think about, as you scale or grow, what should you consider? So these are just some examples of the types of consulting supports that are available for free. Um, if you're a certified social enterprise, we can also add on additional supports. I mean, this is going to take more than 2 hours. But there would be a reduced fee for a social enterprise, and it could include business planning, stakeholder engagement, market readiness, feasibility studies, and strategic planning. As I mentioned, obviously the training and support, we have free webinars, we have a community of practice that meets 4 times a year, and we host lots of events, but we do a lot of advocacy. So in the next few weeks, we're going to release our Buy and Sell with Impact report, which shares stories from our social enterprise ecosystem, shares the successes and the challenges, and we're going to use the findings from this research to go to the federal government. Um, I'm sure you're aware that the Mark Carney government has committed to doing budget cuts of 15% over the next 3 years. And we're going to do our best to make sure that social enterprise is not brushed under the carpet among these cuts. So by being part of our network, you're contributing to the advocacy to make sure that social enterprises aren't being swept aside. Uh, Obviously, most of the social enterprise in our network are nonprofits that are reliant on the grant cycle. The biggest cuts that are probably going to come are going to be in grants. So we want to make sure that we have a stake in the ground and that the voices are being raised and heard at the government level. This is another great story. So, Clean Start Property Services, they started in Vancouver. They recently just expanded to Winnipeg, and they're looking at maybe going to Toronto as well. They provide junk removal and extreme cleaning, as well as litter collection. They do the dirty work. They have a suite of staff that they call the poop fairies. So they come in and remove hazardous material from cities and make sure they're clean. And this is actually, there's a huge, although all cities are different across the country, we've all seen the rise in the unhoused population in the past 5 years since the pandemic, especially in the fentanyl crisis. And lots of cities and communities are being negatively impacted by um, waste that's occurring around encampment sites. So we've actually seen all across the country an increase in demand for social enterprises that employ people that are marginalized and perhaps have lived experience of um, homelessness or battling addiction, and they're able to go in and de-escalate situations instead of calling 911 and keep streets clean in major metropolises. So an example is Clean Start is a member with Bisocial Canada, and through their relationship with us, they've been able to gain more business contracts and also create more meaningful employment and keep cities clean. So that's a nice story. But back to social enterprise certification, I've kind of explained the why, what's the benefit of it, but how? How does it all work? So pretty streamlined. You fill out an application form. Okay, I need to figure out how I'll put the links in the chat after. So you fill out an application form and then we review, okay, do you meet our criteria or not? Then you schedule a call with me or someone else from the team and we get to know you and your organization a little bit better. Then we ask to review your documents. We look at your incorporation documents and your financial documents. And this is how we verify that your revenue does come from the sale of goods and services and that the majority of profits are reinvested back into your purpose. Then we ask you to sign an MOU, fill out one more onboarding form, and you join our network. So it's not that complicated. It's not like joining a B Corp that takes many, many months. Uh, we could do this in a matter of a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It just depends on the how quick your organization is. So certification, it's free for the first year. If you signed on now, then it we wouldn't receive an invoice until January 2027. So it's free for at least the first year. And then after that, your fee is based on the size of your organization. So if you're selling less than $500,000 per year, it's 100 per year. If you're between 500 and a million, it's 200 per year. Over a million, 300, and then over 15 million, if you're really big, big shot, then it's 2,500 per year. So it's a scale based on the size of the organization. Another perk to becoming certified with By Social Canada is that we're a member of People and Planet First, which is a global verification led by the Social Enterprise World Forum. They have an online directory called the Good Market that you can be listed on. It's an international directory. Lots of big purchasers use this to verify social enterprises like IKEA. They actively use the Good Market. It's also great if you do sell products internationally because you'll get a broader audience. But if you become certified with us, you can also join this network and there's no cost. It's totally free. Your fee with us covers it. And then recertification, it's pretty straightforward. It occurs every January. We send out a short Google form. It takes you about 20 minutes to fill out. The Google form advises our Sell with Impact report. So that report that I mentioned is going to come out in the coming weeks. We celebrate lots of stories and give examples of different contract options. And then if it's your year to pay, we also send you an invoice and you can pay via credit card. It's really easy. And then once we have that received, we can send out an updated digital certificate. So it's a pretty streamlined process. And then engagement throughout the year, I usually send at least one email a month sharing updates on what By Social Canada activities are. Sometimes there's opportunities, trainings. We promote lots of regional events. I mean, obviously we're a national organization, but let's say MUN or CSE, no, Newfoundland is hosting an event, we'd be sharing those as well. Yeah, that's kind of it for my presentation. I know the chat was kind of popping off there, but if there's any questions you want to discuss certification, I'm going to stay on for a while here. Happy to answer any questions. And don't be a stranger. Please reach out to me.
Awesome. Thanks for the presentation, Niamh. That was really, kind of helpful. It's great to see the advocacy for the new government coming in a kind of critical moment here. And I was also hoping that you would highlight some certified social enterprises, and you did, so that was really nice. And I was trying to drop a couple of those links that you mentioned as we were going.
Thank you.
Yeah. If there's no questions just yet, I had a couple of my own, actually. If anyone does have a question, feel free to raise your hand or drop in the chat, up to you. But one thing I was thinking about is, for the Newfoundland and Labrador. Oh, here we go. Nancy's got a question. What documents do you collect
Yeah.
for certification?
So we asked to review your incorporation documents so we can see how your business is structured. If you're for profit, then we ask to look at your articles of incorporation. And we have draft language if you need any support to amend your articles of incorporation. And we also look at your financial statements. So if you're a brand new company, like we've certified some social enterprises that are 3 months old, it could be just an Excel spreadsheet looking at, your revenue. But if quite often they're nonprofits, they might have audited financials, and they usually share them with us. It's interesting because, as I mentioned, social enterprises are chameleons. They're not all the same. We have some social enterprises that have been around for 100 years and they're a nonprofit, and 100% of their revenue comes from the sale of goods and services. They don't get any grants or donations. Then we have other social enterprises that might be a small business or entity owned by a parent charity. So then we just certify the social enterprise and focus on that one. And then there's other social enterprises that have a mixed bag. They do have donations, they do have grants, and they also have revenue coming from sale of services. So that's when we look at the financials and just try figure out which element is the social enterprise. This is what we use to differentiate a social enterprise from a nonprofit providing a fee for service. Hope that provides some clarity.
Got it. Thank you. Curious about how Bisocial being a national organization, do you see differences in the different regions or provinces for certified social enterprises? Like maybe, clusters of specific sectors or anything like that?
Ooh, that's a good question. Is there like specific popular demands in specific regions. I don't think so. And I think what's interesting is you see clusters of social enterprise irrespective of the size of a city. Like St. John's has such a robust network of social enterprise that's so well connected, probably more well connected than even Toronto. Like Toronto is such a large population and such a big city. They're so spread out. Obviously, there's more in Toronto because the population's larger, but are they as well connected? So interesting seeing things like that. What I think is more interesting is thinking about what is popular in other cities and how it can be replicated. So you're starting to see people talk about a social enterprise franchise model or replication or licensing model. You know, um, an example, Clean Start I mentioned, they work with BC Housing. So they help some of the BC Housing residents when they're maybe leaving a rental or they're moving to a hospital. They come in and help them remove all of their possessions and move house and maybe do cleaning. Whereas then in Toronto, there's an organization called Building Up, and they provide property maintenance and some construction services for a housing association there. So we're looking at these housing associations and like, oh, how could this be replicated? Because we see that they're really good at working with social enterprise. Right now, we're working with Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. They operate the casinos and all of uh, the liquor stores in Manitoba. And in the span of 1 year, they've been able to drastically launch a supplier diversity program, and they're tracking and measuring and reporting on not just social enterprises they're working with, but also Indigenous businesses they're buying from, women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses. Um, so we're kind of looking at both sides, not only where are the social enterprise successes, but where are the purchasers that we see can easily make changes within their organizations to practice social procurement. So I think that's when Buy Social Canada come in and we attack both sides to create as many positive opportunities as possible. I don't know if that really answered your question at all, but it's
That that does actually, yeah. And I really like the point that you made about, looking at what other areas are doing. I never heard of Clean Start, but my hometown, Edmonton, Alberta, I think that's a model that will be really worth to explore there. So hopefully
Mm.
Clean Start could go there, or someone is working on it. But yeah, we don't always need to reinvent the wheel for sure.
Actually,
Um,
Edmonton has an amazing social enterprise called Hire Good. And they
okay, good.
started they started monitoring public washrooms in 2020. And these public washrooms, they used to have 911 calls 3 times a day. And then when Hire Good staff started monitoring them, it happened only a few times a month that the 911 calls were happening because they had people there monitoring, protecting each other, and it created so much more safety for the neighborhood. Um, so that's a really great example. They also, what do they do? They, clean the streets, collect like needles, crack pipes, drug paraphernalia. How do you keep the streets clean? Um, and that's something we're starting to see too. Like in Ottawa, there's another social enterprise called Needle Hunters, and they do the same thing. And they have contracts with the city of Ottawa, city of Edmonton, like really large purchasers. So there are examples that, a social enterprise doesn't always have to be a small cafe or a thrift store. Like you can operate a really successful business and sell to the bigwigs. You can sell to government and, have long-term contracts that might be rolling over. So I really see social enterprise as such a massive opportunity to create solutions, like positive solutions for communities. Brennan.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really, really heartening to hear.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe I'll do one more question. You mentioned, kind of the work that you do around connecting to the procurement side. We're in a really interesting time right now, with the tariff conversations with Buy Canada. Just curious, like any thoughts about what trends you're seeing or how you're seeing social enterprises navigate, right now?
Mhm. Yeah, so obviously we work with a lot of these large purchasers that are privy to international trade agreements. And in the international trade agreements, you technically can't prioritize buying from a local business. However, there are language you can use. So you're not saying we will not buy from America, we will only buy from Canadian businesses. You can add in questions like, if you were awarded this contract, do you commit to employing only local residents? So then it's like, okay, maybe it is a large company that maybe it came from a different part of North America, but are they employing locally? So we work with the large purchasers and how they can include language about prioritizing local businesses. Social enterprises are local, they are Canadian. This is the reality. So our messaging hasn't really changed that much, other than by including more diverse owned businesses and social enterprises in your supply chain, you are buying Canadian. So that's a key part of our message, and always has been. And what's really interesting too in these political times, especially, a few months back during the election, social enterprises are non-partisan. They do not sit necessarily as being liberal or conservative, because all politicians care about community, and social enterprises are driven by community. So technically they should be able to survive a wave of whatever political landscape changes come along, because people care about their community and how they're being impacted by whatever's going on, and social enterprise is the solution for this. So we've got lots of language on our website about Canada first, and a strong economy is a Canadian economy, and social enterprise is that. It fits exactly in that mold. So I think now more than ever is a really great time to not just talk about social enterprise, but say, we are local businesses, and social enterprise is the key to supporting a Canadian economy.
Well said. All right. Well, I'll pause briefly for if there's any last thoughts or questions. In the meantime, we've got the link to the application and the resources. If folks are interested in learning more or want to have a chat, is it okay if they get a hold of you, or should they reach
Yeah.
out somewhere?
I'll put my email in the chat as well.
Okay, awesome. And Niamh, thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights and examples, and the good work that you're doing. So really appreciate it.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to a new audience and see new faces, meet new people. Hopefully this won't be the last time you hear about Bisocial Canada.
Definitely not. Nancy, I'll hand it over to you for maybe the last word.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks, Niamh, for joining us today. I learned so much about social enterprise certification every time you come in. It almost like a refresher to learn about social procurement, social enterprise, and why it's so important. So thank you so much. Before we end today's community of practice session, CSCNL and our team would like to do a teaser. So our team is going to, for those who have been around for the last year's Community Ideas Festivals, we are going to collect some feedback and thoughts to support our ideation to create the next one. So stay tuned to our social media posts and more details to come. But yeah, we are collecting more thoughts, and your thoughts are important for co-creating a better community idea festivals. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. The next one, we will be sharing the details on our social media, so stay tuned. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Good to see you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.